What's up guys, Josh here again, back with Bryce, and in our last video we kind of ended with how does powerlifting fit into a bodybuilder's training, and kind of where can they get a benefit out of that. As somebody who does both, I've seen that training heavy will get you bigger, but there also is a lot more to it than that.
Sure.
And I'll kind of let you go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, so to kind of progress this along, I think it's best when people get insight of like perspective. So nobody has better perspective than you, Josh. I mean, you've done it a couple of times now as you've competed as a powerlifter, and then you've competed as a bodybuilder several times. You know, that's something that I haven't done. So I really don't even have personal perspective on it, but I have been around a lot of people and taught a lot of people that do both. From a like a chemical or stimulus standpoint, powerlifting and bodybuilding can be the same and can be very different. With bodybuilding, I want to almost like look at it as it's like the dumb man's way of training, because you really can't go wrong in the beginning to build muscle. But you can, as you get better, be very specific. So if in a general sense, let's consider we have three styles of stimulus. We have the powerlifting or neurological style stimulus. We have like the middle of the road, which is like the hypertrophy stimulus, which has a little bit of power, okay? And then on the other end of the continuum, we have the metabolic or lactic stimulus, which is going for the pump. It's those longer sets where you're going for the burn. And all of these have their benefits in the bodybuilding community. But what's really cool is, like Josh has experienced, is by going through these different stimuluses where you've had different goals in your training, they've made you stronger in different ways, or they maybe have deloaded you from all that power training that you have done to where you go back into your powerlifting environment, you've recovered enough, your body's ready to go, it's hungry for that power training again, and you ultimately perform better, right? So the important thing is to realize is that the powerlifter's niche is to be good at that power training, but you can't linearly do that all the time in this steady periodized progression. You have to take a break from it. And that's where the creativity of using other stimuluses, like maybe a little bit of hypertrophy training, or even maybe a little bit of lactic training where you're going from the pump, pulling the volume down on that power training, and doing a block, so to speak, of that can be beneficial, because when you go back into a block of the same volume of the neurological power training you were doing before, you deloaded long enough from that stimulus to where your body's ready to go again, and it can continue to progress ahead. All right? So the idea is being good at a stimulus, getting as far away from it as possible, going back to the stimulus, getting better at it, getting as far away from it as possible, getting back into it, getting better and better, right? So that your progress in the stimulus that you're looking to get better in continues to get better and better. It never gets worse and worse. And then the complicated part is realizing, how long do I stay here and how long do I stay here? And the honest, my honest opinion is, like, you have to guess in the beginning, and then you have to build upon that. Everything's an educated guess, which is why keeping really close track of what you're doing with training logs like you've experienced lately is super important. Having your numbers and your calculations and all those things, so that when you go back to that training style, you know where you were at, and you can see if you're actually progressing, or if you're not getting any better, and you might have went back into that stimulus too soon, and that's how you make an adjustment. Okay.
And for getting, like, say, you were in a power phase, and then you kind of come off and deload and go back into that, how will your numbers, or how will most people's numbers differ from their strength, from that power, going back into it? Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off zone, but as far as getting back up to where you were, or getting even past that, is that common during that, or?
It should be the goal.
Okay.
It should be the goal. The goal is that I'm continue to get stronger, or my contractions are getting better, more efficient, faster, whatever whatever your perception is. Every time you go back to that phase, you have to realize there will be this little decline, but your body should climb exponentially faster, because it's better trained now. Like, literally, you're increasing your training age while you're doing this. So every time you go back in that phase, you may be starting off at a point that a point a little bit before than you ended. Like, you may feel like you regressed to start with, but your body should be like ready to fire, and it should adapt very, very fast, because it's really ready and fine-tuned for that stimulus all over again. So ultimately, by the time you end that phase, you should have had a PR in something. I'm not always going to say weight, but you should feel like, say, like your max bench press was 405. Let's just say that, okay? you should feel like that 405 goes like way faster or way more intense the next time you hit it going back into that phase than it did the time before. You should feel like you are maturing in that stimulus in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Yeah.
And could you also say the same thing about when you go into a hypertrophy phase?
Absolutely.
That each time you go into that maybe your weight isn't higher, but how the weight moves, your tempo, your contractions, everything would get better, similar to how your strength would continue to go
And
up.
from my standpoint as a powerlifter, or excuse me, as a bodybuilder, that is why I use powerlifting, is because what powerlifting does is it helps you make really intense contractions. It's teaching your body to recruit more and more and more of its muscle fibers to complete this job, right? When you go into maybe like that bodybuilding metabolic style stimulus, if I'm able to contract more muscle fibers here, I won't need near as much volume going back into this every time because I'm getting better at contracting. Is that right? Makes sense? So I'm making that stimulus even more intense, which means I'm becoming even more efficient here too, which what you'll find is over time, you'll be able to spend a little bit longer in this phase and you'll need a little bit less time in this phase here to achieve like the deload effect to go back into this one. But that's why I love neurological training, because it makes me better in the pump training. Maybe at 40 pounds of a bicep curl, it used to take me 15 reps to really feel the pump. Now I'm able to contract so well after doing a neurological phase, it may only take me 8 to get the same biochemical stimulus that I'm looking for, which is what's so cool about training efficiently in these phases, is they make the other ones better without you even knowing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
For the people out there who are watching who, they understand this, but they're trying to figure out, well, how do I become more efficient now in my training? What would be like the 3 main things for somebody out there to be like, okay, this is just something simple you can do to just start thinking about during your training to get more out of it?
Yeah, so 3 things. Wow, there's so many.
If you want more, you can say more.
Yeah, so the big thing is I want to give you guys something that's like you can implement now. So whether you're a bodybuilder, or a powerlifter, or you're just looking to transform your body, number one, you have to have a sense of your human anatomy. So I'm not saying you have to study the body and know what every muscle group does, but kind of know its function and what it's supposed to do. So know that your biceps' main job is to flex the elbow, right? Know that your triceps' main job is to extend the elbow, because what's important about that is when you go in to train a muscle group and you know its function, you'll just try to achieve that function rather than all this extra body English that we don't need, because ultimately that's just a creative way of your body to cheat, okay? Number 2 is learn to find ways to have ownership of the entire range of motion at all times. So when you feel tension in the muscle, don't freaking let it go. That's the biggest, it's like my biggest pet peeve is getting lazy in ranges of motion, especially the ranges where your body's the most weak. So the reason why you don't want to spend time in the top of the leg extension is because you're weak there. So don't bounce in and out of the leg extension, right? Identify those ranges in the motion that feel really, really hard and own the piss out of them in those ranges. That's my number 2, okay? Number 3 is learn to read your biofeedback, right? So if you're performing well on day 1, you perform crappier on day 2, you perform even crappier on day 3, it's time to make an adjustment. So you have to be able to like do a trial and error in a sense. Does that mean maybe I should take a day off after 2 days of training? Possibly. Does that mean I can't do as many sets in my workout per muscle group? Possibly, right? Does that mean that I need to increase my rest periods between sets? Possibly. All those are yes answers. The thing that you have to realize is you have to start making a decision somewhere. You can't just accept the fact that it's okay to have a bad day in the gym. There's no such thing as a bad day in the gym. There's only a bad plan, right? So either you fell short on something you're doing outside of the gym, or your training program doesn't fit where your body's at right now. Okay, so master those 3 things, and I guarantee your efficiency every day in the gym will at least be progressing in the right way for you to build upon that and get even better.
Makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think, Josh? What are the things that have helped you, man?
I really think some of the biggest things, one of them is what you said, is spend times in the extremes of where it hurts. I know, like, I've worked with you in some one-on-one sessions, and I remember going the first time through a lat workout with Bryce. We were doing cable lat pullovers, and we had like 20 pounds with a rope pullover. I remember whenever I finally learned how to actually get my lat short in that position, I was like shaking. Like it hurt to keep it there, and was a very, very light weight. Given I had decent lats, I had a strong back from rows and deadlifts, but my lats weren't very strong in that lift, and it's actually slowing things down, eliminating the momentum out of it, and getting the muscle where it needs to be. That's progressed greatly in everything. And I mean, that carries over into my powerlifting as well. You know, I mean, when you have to keep your back tight on a deadlift, your lats are great in there. If you know how to actually stabilize your lats and feel them how they should, that's not going to let me run my back. It's going to make me stronger, et cetera, et cetera. That's probably one of the biggest things. I mean, even in a leg extension, like you said, getting it to the top, that shit sucks. Like that's where you want to throw up.
Right.
Anyone can sit there and do 100 half reps, and that hurts, but no one cares. When you actually have someone assist you to the top range and hold it there, that's when it really, really affects you. Another thing that I believe is beneficial, and I know you kind of touched on it as well, is just listening to your body's biofeedback, knowing when to take an off day. I'm the type of person where I don't want to take off days. I don't enjoy taking off days, and I'll actually try to train as much as I possibly can. And I've seen in my own training, especially as recently as I really need to kind of pull back sometimes. I don't need to do heavy squat, heavy bench, heavy deadlift, back to heavy squat, and keep repeating like that, thinking that it's going to be this continual progress. And actually pulling back, not doing the big lifts consistently, and understanding like, okay, my lifts are sucking and sucking and sucking, but they weren't when I was doing this, and actually doing that rather than, oh, I want to do it just because I feel like I should for a video or because I like to.
Right.
But those are probably the biggest things I've noticed myself.
So the last couple things, because anytime Josh talks, my brain gets going, right? So to build upon a few thoughts, okay, to finish this off, one thing I want to touch on is what Josh was just speaking about, is like learning to take off days. Realize this is so obvious, but we forget it. You don't grow when you train people. You create abuse when you train, right? You create damage. You grow when you break. Some people create so much damage in their training session. They're so good at training, they're going to require off days. So if you're one of those people, more power to you, right? That's the way that I look at it. That's the way that makes me want to take off days. It's like I want to be so good in the gym that I need the off day to recover. I need that much more recovery than somebody that just goes in and aimlessly moves. That's the way that I look at the off day. I'm earning this off day. I'm earning this extra food because I train just that much better than you do, right? Or you do. So yeah, maybe I have a little bit of an attitude to it, but yeah, I deserve those off days. I've earned them because I work that hard. Okay, what I do in 40 minutes, you don't do in 3 days. That kind of deal, right? Secondly is, if you're a power lifter, if you're looking to be big and strong like Josh, if you're looking to have 600 pounds squat like Josh does, done 600?
I've done more.
Okay, I want to make sure. I didn't want to like put your foot in your mouth or set the bar too high. Is do the non-sexy stuff. Do your step-ups, do your split squats, do your leg presses, you know, do your glute bridges. Like, they're not sexy.
Stuff that doesn't look good for
Yeah,
Instagram.
it's not attractive. You're not going to do 1,000,000 pounds. In fact, you're probably really weak, especially if you're getting rid of momentum, things like Josh was talking. But they will exponentially carry over into those compound movements that you're looking to get stronger. You won't know why your squat's getting bigger. You won't know why your deadlift's getting bigger. You won't know why your bench is getting bigger until you realize, like, oh, I'm taking proper care to doing these non-sexy things, and all of a sudden I'm healthier and I perform better. So those couple things, guys, really, really consider them, and you'll take off.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I just want to say thanks, Bryce, for coming on and doing this. I appreciate it. If anybody has any questions or wants to contact Bryce or watch more of his stuff, we will put all of his information in the description box below. And make sure to check his stuff out. And thanks again for watching, guys.
Thanks.